It is truly an honor today to introduce our guest presenter here, Rose Hybear, who is the founding director of the Native American nonprofit Elderberry Wisdom Farm. And she will share her experience on integrating traditional ecological knowledge into their experiential service learning activities and discuss how they provide it to Native American and other interns of color pursuing conservation career pathways. Rose's partnership began with the Soil and Water District 6 years ago, as well as through Chemeketa Community College, and has now expanded to partner with North Santiam and Pudding River Watershed Council, Institute of Applied Ecology, and its Willamette Valley Native Plant Partnership, Oregon Tilth, and its TOPP program, and several Oregon tribes, local organic farms, and most recently, the City of Salem Urban Forestry and the Oregon Department of Forestry. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Rose now.
Well, thank you, Cassie, and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see you all again. Marion Soil and Water Conservation District has a very special place in my heart because you were so gracious to me when I moved down to the Willamette Valley back around 2017. And we formed Elderberry Wisdom Farm at that time. So we were just a little teeny organization, and you all treated us like we were special. It was very cool. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to be here. I just want to say that I love talking about the work that we do, and it was my honor to be asked to share about the work we do here with your community. And so I think everybody's interested in traditional ecological knowledge and what that means. And I think that you also realize that whoever you speak with, they're going to have a different definition because it's a very personal, very cultural, very spiritual perspective, the principles that we live with. So mostly that's what I'm going to be talking about today. But if you want to go to the next slide, and everybody's going to wonder, now, what are we doing up in the National Wildlife Arctic region? This shows our caribou, and I am a caribou person. So I even had a vision on the caribou clear back around 1988, I think it was. And so as you see this picture here, I believe this is the porcupine herd of caribou, which are still thriving at about 218,000 caribou. We're doing quite well. The Western Arctic caribou herd has been suffering, and it's dropped more than 50% in the last decade. And they're trying to determine, the scientists are trying to determine why, but for some reason, our caribou are still thriving. And so I am a subarctic person. I was born in the village of McGrath, Alaska. It's on the Kuskokwim River. Mom and I were both born there. And my grandmother was born on the Yukon River. And I think everybody's heard of the Yukon in the village of Anvik. And so Anvik was in the news recently because we had a typhoon hit the Kuskokwim Delta region. And it actually came up the Yukon River and affected things at in Anvik, a teeny little village of Anvik on the Yukon River. And so I was really surprised to see, number one, that kind of a weather pattern up in our area. I don't think it's ever occurred before. So we as subarctic people know that, the climate is changing. I would say it would have been about 70 years ago, our elders started noticing climate changes. And so as you notice this picture, this is in the wildlife refuge area, which we call in our Athabascan language, the place where creation began. And so I always like to introduce myself because my thousands of years of ancestors are buried in these sacred lands. They did an archaeological dig in the village, grandmother's village, Sophie's village, and it turned out that we've been there for 14,500 years. So that makes me feel very proud and very humble. To Blue Elderberry Wisdom Farm. And so we just took this gorgeous little picture of the elderflower, which I revere this flower. It's a very powerful medicine, and we work with it. It can actually heal skin diseases like eczema or eczema, however you want to pronounce it. And so we named our nonprofit Elderberry Wisdom Farm. We look at this plant as an elder And as we really communicate with the plants and we regard them as relatives. And so it makes sense that we would acknowledge the wisdom in these plants. Although they're unseen and perhaps you can't hear them speaking to you, they do have a voice. And, the beauty of them is like indescribable, those precious little teeny little flowers that cluster there. So I've been running this nonprofit and I have been working with the elderberry for a few decades. We used to have these things up in Portland when I was with Wisdom of the Elders. We would call them Wisdom of the Elderberry Harvest Celebration. So we'd invite everybody over. We'd make elderberry syrup in the backyard and pass it out and make sure that everybody knew how to make it and that they could make their own immune booster. And we just encourage people to be aware of the power of this plant to heal. And so I guess that's why it got its name. And we have been here now for over 6 years, as of last August, I believe. And we're still growing. We're very blessed that we had partners that believed in us and allowed us to grow, rapidly. So we got a contract almost immediately with the Chemeketa Community College agriculture science people to teach TEK and integrate it with their Western science at the college. So we got a 5-year grant, and that has funded our internships for the last 5 years. This is the last month of that 5-year project. And so we've been spoiled and blessed by them, and now we have to venture into the unknown without that partnership. But we still have a great relationship with Tim. We were just down there last week when we had our last graduation of our fall interns, and we gifted him with a blanket, an Indian blanket. We used to give Pendletons, but now we found an Indian company that makes blankets with totem designs, and we gifted Tim, the dean of the School of Agriculture Science, and thanked him for being so kind and gracious to us these past 5 years. This is our mission statement. I'm not necessarily going to read it, but there it is, and you can look it up later. And I do believe that is not our yes, that is our latest mission statement. We have a vision statement and a mission statement, and we work hard to help our people to learn how to integrate TEK with the Western science and to provide career pathway planning into a conservation field. And we were really focusing on habitat restoration, and now we're more interested in native plant nursery development, urban forestry. And we also believe that it's possible for our people to own their own business. So we do focus on micro enterprise development as well. So we work with our interns, small groups of interns, anywhere from 4 to 8, sometimes 9 at a time. And we work in the classroom with them, providing our own lesson plans. And we also spend at least 50% of the time outside doing what we call experiential service learning training. And we're constantly mentoring our people because we work with people who have suffered from, I guess you could say, low income and perhaps historical trauma, which you've probably heard about Native Americans and the historical intergenerational or ancestral trauma that we're overcoming in our lifetime. And so this is the work we do, not only healing the world of nature, but healing our people. And so it's very fulfilling work. And you can always check us out at our website if you'd like to. There's a film clip down there if you want to learn more about our social and economic development work. So if you'd like to go to the next slide, we can talk about traditional ecological knowledge. And I believe that's the main focus on our talk today. And I would really like to open it up to Q&A. And if any of you have any questions at all, if you want to put them in the text box, and then either Cassie or Chelsea can help tell me what the questions are, and I'll be happy to respond. So if we could just have a couple of Q&As today instead of just at the end, that would be great. And you can also let me know, because I'm a little out of touch with regard to timing, but you can let me know how much time we have as this progresses so that I don't get carried away telling stories or whatever. So anyway, everyone has heard of TEK or traditional knowledges. And anyone you speak to is going to have a different identity with regard to TEK. And so this gives you an idea of how we regard this work that we do. We regard ourselves as related to everyone and everything. And so when we're out in the world of nature, we definitely feel our creator, the one who created the earth and the sky and all of the plants. We definitely feel that. And It's a powerful feeling of healing, being connected and being accepted and being included in part of the human family and also the world family, the world of nature. And so oftentimes, people are confused over what TEK really is because it's so holistic. It includes our spirituality, it includes our cultural traditions, it includes even this is so amazing. We're talking about traditional stories, songs, ceremonies. And as one elder down in New Mexico or Arizona said a few years ago, it even includes our lullabies. So when we're out harvesting out in our old little ecosystems harvesting, and we have our babies with them in the cradle boards, we're hanging them from the trees and the branches, and they're swinging in the breeze. And as we're harvesting, we're singing to our babies. And so these lullabies are not just songs or songs, so they're also harvesting songs. So we're singing to the babies and we're honoring the spirit of the plants that we're harvesting, and it all fits together. And so I was just so stunned when she said we even look at our lullabies as part of traditional ecological knowledge. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of how we just burst the edges of understanding of what it is. It's much more than a person can really explain because it's at a spiritual center within ourselves when we talk about this. And so I think this is a perfect time. If anybody has any questions, they're welcome to let me know. And Cassie or Chelsea, which one of you would like to relay to me any questions that come up? And I'll just keep on sharing until a question comes up and you can let me know.
Sure, yeah. I'm happy to keep an eye on the chat box to see if anyone put some questions. So far, it doesn't look like anyone has put a question in there yet. So I guess if anyone has an impromptu question they'd like to ask Rose at this time, feel free to take yourself off of mute to do that. But otherwise, I think we can just go forward, expecting people to put stuff in the chat. And then, yeah, feel free to take a break whenever you want to allow for questions, and I'm happy to read them from the chat.
Okay, sure. Just let me know and interrupt me if anything should come up because I'm not necessarily seeing the chat box.
Sounds good.
So, usually when I give a talk, I will tell something from my creation story. So, as an Alaskan Athabascan, I'm one of the 12 bands of Athabascan in Alaska, and we are Deg Hit'an Dine, and we have a creation story about the caribou. And these creation stories are mostly oral tradition. You don't always find them written, but when I'm up in Alaska, people will tell me little pieces of my own people's creation story. And this is the one of the caribou. So I would just like to take a minute just to give you an idea. This is TEK. And so a long, long time ago, our people who lived in the village along the Yukon River and lived so happily harvesting and fishing the salmon and treasuring our elders and treasuring our babies and living in family together. We lost an elder, and he had been such a treasured elder that everyone up and down the Yukon River knew about him. And so as the fall of the year came and we had our potlatch, and if you've ever heard of a potlatch, you understand that that's our time of giveaway to honor someone who's crossed over to the spirit world. And so the canoes came from upriver and downriver, and the people gathered all over the village. And it was in the fall of the year. And so we did a lot of singing, we did a lot of prayers, we did a lot of different ceremonial traditions, and we did a lot of serving of food. We fed people day and night for days and even weeks. And so by the time that our people had, completed this whole tradition of honoring this person that we had lost, most of our food had been eaten, and it was the fall of the year. And we began to wonder, well, how are we going to make it in the winter? We have fed these people for so long that most of our food is gone. And so they began to go out and harvest as much as they could, but it was late in the fall, and blizzards come unexpectedly in the Arctic, and this was no exception. And so the people became frightened, and they didn't want to lose more elders. They did not want their babies to starve to death, and so they prayed. And the way of our people is always prayer and asking help from the spirit world. And so, as it always happens, when we do pray, the spirit world heard us. And they gathered in a circle in the spirit world and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to help them? And so they consulted together until they came up with a solution. And they called upon one of the maidens who had recently come home to the spirit world, and she had led her life in such a beautiful way when she was alive and walking the earth, that they selected her to be the caribou maiden to come down to the people. And so she came down from the spirit world and came close to the village and came close to the earth. She couldn't touch the earth, but she came really close. And all of the villagers saw her and came out to honor and greet her. And out of her chest came the caribou, and they came across her shoulder and down her arm and onto her hand, and they jumped off from her hand onto the earth. And those were the caribou, and that was how the people were able to feed themselves that winter. They were able to harvest enough caribou to make it through the hard, difficult, sometimes very long months of winter. And so ever since that time, we have been spiritually, emotionally connected to the caribou. And the Great Spirit put a piece of the caribou's heart into the Athabascan's heart. And they put a piece of the Athabascan's heart into the caribou. And that's how we're so closely related. So anyway, that's what I love about our stories. And there is another story because I also have some Inupiaq blood. Our people hundreds of years ago had gone out hunting, and there was a neighboring band, which was the Inupiaq people. They lived up above in the above the Arctic Ocean there. We captured a man who was a famous hunter and warrior, and our people were always faced with starvation. And so, for some reason, you know, this capturing. They captured this man who was such a famous hunter, and what it would do, it would ensure that our people would have enough food for the winter. And also, him being a Inupiaq, he wasn't of our blood because we never married within our own band. And so we always had to find more distant relatives to intermarry. And so this man, White Bear, his name was White Bear Kills Walrus. And they married him into one of our oldest granddaughters, who was of Marion age, and he loved it. You know, ordinarily you'd think if you captured somebody, they would be very resistant and they would do anything they could to, you know, escape and go back home to their own people. But for some reason, he loved being so close to the to Denali, the Great One. You know, Mount McKinley, it's really called Denali, the Great One. In the Athabascan language, Denali means the Great One. It's the tallest mountain in the North American continent. He loved the mountain, and he felt like he developed such a close relationship with it. He felt like he became a protector of Denali. And so he stayed. And he loved the people in the village, and he loved his wife. And so I actually have Inupiaq blood in my system because of this this capturing of this gentleman. I don't know how many hundreds of years ago. I can't quite remember how old that story is, but you know, it's really wonderful to look at the Inupiaq people. Now, these people, they were the people of the bowhead whale, and you know, down here in Oregon, we know about, you know, the killer whale. But what we have up in Alaska is one of them is the bowhead whale. And I just want to share a little story about our people and how they have this very unique and special relationship with their relatives, the bowhead whale. And so the Inupiaq use the whale as their food, and they do go out harvesting. And so the whole village gets together, and the whole whaling community, they've got their whaling captains. And so they got together and they, as a community, and they all prayed for a successful hunt. They needed to go out and capture some of their own kind and bring it back so that our people could make it through the winter. And so they offered the prayers, and the prayers went out into the ocean. And there was a whale that saw that prayer, and he accepted that prayer. And so what he did first, though, before he accepted it, is he wondered, you know, what was the woman like? He did not go to the man, the whale hunter, and what they call the whaling captain that led the group that goes hunting. He went to the whaling captain's wife. And he said, how well does she take care of her family? How well does she take care of her food? And how well does she take care of all of the people? And then she went down into the ice cellar because, as you know, before climate change, the ground was hard and frozen. And we had these ice cellars. We didn't need freezers because we'd just go down into the ice cellar and it was always below zero. And so nowadays we're afraid of botulism and we can't use it as much as we used to. The people are starting to incorporate actually electric freezers. But the spirit of the whale went down into that ice cellar and looked to see how clean did she keep that space? How well did she take care of the food that was down there? And then he saw that she was a very special woman and taking such good care of her family and her people and the ice cellar. And so the next day, when everyone went out to harvest the whale with their harpoons, um, this whale came up and went sideways and gave itself to the people. And so that's how it is that we go hunting. We don't just go out and go hunting for something. We pray to the spirit world and we ask for something to be given to us, that we can have a good harvest and that it will be an exchange that is fair and spiritual. And so that's another story of the creation story of the Inupiaq people and how the people of the whale are related to the whale, to the bowhead whale. And so those are two very precious stories to me, and it aligns me with my ancestry up in Alaska. You know, I live down here in Oregon, but my heart really stays in Alaska part of the time. And so, especially as we're approaching this winter, wonderful insights. How would you recommend people begin? What? Do you want to read that?
Yeah, I can read that out loud. So this is a question from Victoria. First thanking for all of the wonderful insights, and then asking how you would recommend people begin integrating TEK into their day-to-day lives. Are there simple ways for people to integrate this perspective? And if you could share information about the TEK internships, that would be appreciated as well.
Oh, sure. I think that was about three different questions, and we'll see how I do so far. Well, the way to integrate it is you need to work with some of the native people that land here. We work with about a dozen or more partners. We keep getting more and more partners. We're very open to working with our community, and you really can't integrate TEK unless you include somebody who's indigenous to the land or who's Native American or, you know, who has a solid understanding of TEK and knows how to integrate it. And so the way that we do it is we just work with our partners in a very friendly and positive fashion. We're very excited anytime we can go out and work with somebody. So, you know, I was just emailing Brandon, who's the executive director of the North Santiam Watershed Council. And I emailed her about a week ago and I said, Brandon, we're getting ready for winter, you know, internship. And it's our first internship in the winter. And is there any way we can work with you over there? And so Brandon emailed me back and said, that's great, Rose. You know, we'd love to have you come out. And I said, well, what we really love about you is that you've got the side channels on the North Santiam River, and you have populations of beaver, and you've got populations of two different species of turtles native to the ecosystem. And so, you know, we will do anything we can to help you to, you know, remove invasives or do whatever is necessary. So the way we do it is we just communicate back and forth and we develop plans where our interns will go out and support them. And so for the last couple of years, we've been going up to John Neal Memorial County Park, if you know where that is. And we go out and we remove Ludwigia from their waterways. And so we get our high boots on and go out and you know, 2 summers ago we had 8 interns, and so it was a record-breaking day of going out and pulling Ludwigia, and they pulled something like 940 pounds or something like that of Ludwigia from the waterway, and then we're getting ready to plant Wapato in its place. And then this summer, we told our summer interns from this summer, we had 8 of them this summer, and they went out and they actually surpassed it and pulled more than 1,000 pounds in one day. So our team has great enthusiasm because we love working in the natural areas. We love our partners. and working together on things that we both, support, which is an ecosystem that has increasing numbers of native plant species and declining numbers of invasives. And so it's kind of silly the fact that our TEK, a lot of our work is pulling invasives, but that's what we have to do in order to clean up our ecosystems. The research has shown that if you plant multiple tree, shrub, and forb species all together, the biodiversity of the soil gets so strong that the whole ecosystem becomes stronger and more able to be balanced and healthy. And so I can't quite, I was looking up that research the other day and I couldn't quite find it, but I'm going to look it up later. But, that's what we really work on, is restoring our native plants. And if you work with any of the local tribes, you will discover that, they're trying to restore their traditional first foods. And we go a little bit beyond that because we've got an agreement with the Oregon Department of Forestry to restore native trees, which is just a little bit different. It can be a food source, such as the acorns, but we really work on a lot of plants that may not be food plants, but they're still native to this ecosystem. So that's how we integrate TEK. And you can contact me, whatever organization you work with. You can come out and be a volunteer. You can sign up for our newsletter and just stay in touch with us. And we would love to share more of our wisdom and knowledge, what little we know. We feel, to be honest with you, that we know very little. The older I get, I discover the less I know. But this page that I'm looking at here is a perfect example of what the ecosystems does for our people, because it's talking about how it's boosting your attention span working out. But what we discover is when we go out into our ecosystems and work, that we look into the woods and we just see the face of God there. We see the face of Creator who created it, because you can see Creator in its own creation. That's what we believe. And it's healing. And so what happens here is, and with this article, that in case you didn't see it in the New York Times this last summer, it just appeared. I've got it someplace. I've made a file just to save it, because they're talking about the fact that the science has shown that their students do better in school when they are connected out in the local ecosystems, even if it's in their own schoolyard, in their neighborhoods, wherever. And so I think it's important to know this and cultivate this relationship, because we are in relationship with all of it, all of creation. Now, I'm afraid that you asked 3 questions and I could only remember 1 or 2. There was one in the middle, but if there's
Yeah,
another.
so I think you mostly answered it. But I guess one other question of this comment is about how are there simple ways for people to integrate this perspective? I guess you kind of answered that in terms of being out in nature, boosting your attention span. But I guess kind of breaking it down into I guess things people could do even in their own homes potentially. I know you mentioned that first step is usually working with the indigenous folks in the area, but is there anything people can do to incorporate this traditional ecological knowledge at home even?
Well, I think so. Usually we feel like we need to connect with the local people, and some people may be a little intimidated. I don't know why us Indians have to be so scary, but people may not be comfortable contacting a tribal person and asking them for help. But there are a ton of videos out there. You can raise your awareness of TK and how you can adapt it just by listening to some of these people speaking. There's a Potawatomi elder who is featured. I have at least 11 of her videos. Robin Kimmerer, and she has a PhD, and she's also a very revered author, and like I said, a Potawatomi ethnobotanist and educator. She has a lot of videos out there, and there are some people here in the Western tribes that are sharing more and more. And I have at least 50, if not 100, videos of people, including the local tribes. There's more and more films out there. And I think that more we expose ourselves to the voices and philosophy, the rich perspectives of Native people, we can learn how we can go into our own backyard, even without a Native person present, and integrate You're basically taking the qualitative and combining it with the quantitative. So they say that Western science, we document the impact of our work through our quantitative. But as Indian people, we really focus on the qualitative. Now, how has this helped us holistically? How has this strengthened our academic achievement of our students? How has this helped us to heal personally? There are a whole bunch of factors. And you can look at how your world and your life becomes enriched because you have this new relationship. And so I think you hear the word reciprocity frequently, and that is probably one of the biggest terms of all when we're talking about TEK is that reciprocal relationship with the world of nature, realizing that we don't have dominion over the earth as it was interpreted in the Bible, but we are the grandchildren of the earth, and it is our teacher. And so we truly believe that many people have had that backwards. And if you're going to practice TEK, what you have to realize is that you are you are the grandchild. You are the one that needs to listen and learn from that which is around you. And you can learn from the plant world, the birds and the animals, the insects, whatever you want, the bodies of water, the trees. You can learn from them. You can learn academically through articles and different educational films, but you can also with your own intuition to the extent to which you have intuition and compassion and empathy, that opens you up emotionally to be able to draw upon the strengths that you can find in the local areas here. So this is our summer interns. We had 8 women, and Joaquin is my new native plant nursery coordinator. By some miracle, he managed to survive 8 women who followed him around like puppies this summer. He's such an inspirational guy. He's just really positive and intuitive, and he listens to everybody and then gives them lots of positive encouragement. We had a great time this summer, repotting our own. We have, what is it, probably about 1,400 potted plants out that right now that we're marketing for the city of Salem urban forestry. And so we have our hands full constantly trying to either irrigate, when it was hot out, we were constantly watering, we were constantly repotting something, and just growing our nursery here. And so this is the team that comes out and works with our partners. So we have worked with the Salem Water Conservation District doing work out there. I'm trying to remember the name of that special place we go to. We do different things with them. And we work with the Pudding River Watershed Council. They're doing a great mapping and survey project right now, and we got to learn about mapping and survey of oak habitats in eastern Marion County, where there was an undercount of our oak. And so if you know Kurt, out at the Pudding River Watershed Council, he wrote a grant and he got a small grant to do survey and mapping work. And I said, Kurt, would you teach our team how to do that? So we just follow them around and we learn, how they do that work. And so this is the team that we had last summer. This fall, we just had 4. So usually in the fall, winter, and spring, we've got a smaller cohort. But in the summer, the students are out of school. And these are usually people that have just graduated with a bachelor's degree. We've had a few that have had their master's degree, but they all go out and they just seem to love getting off the farm and going and helping our partners. We're just getting ready to go down to the Institute for Applied Ecology next week and do some more seed cleaning. And they're going to be teaching us how to germinate seeds. Then the next day, we're going to go see Amy down there at USDA NRCS, the Plant Materials Center in Corvallis. She's letting us cut some, what do you call them? Hard cuttings. We tried soft cuttings. They're a little bit less successful, but we're doing the hard cuttings here next week too. So those are some of the things we go out and do. And all it takes is if you're with an organization and you'd like to do a project with us, we're kind of like free labor and a shot of positive energy. And then if you would like to do volunteering with us, you can come and learn from us on a Saturday. We've been almost too busy to set up volunteer activities. So the last couple of months, we haven't offered anything, but we're trying to get ourselves organized out here and offer another event here pretty soon. But that's how we work with our partners. And if you want to go to the next PowerPoint is going to list some of the things which I believe maybe Cassie has already mentioned. These are some of our partners, and you heard all of them. The most recent one is here in city of Salem, the urban forestry. We got funded to do urban forestry work, and so we've been able to do some planning with the city of Salem urban forestry to put more trees out and more canopies out in low tree canopy neighborhoods, usually the lower income neighborhoods of Salem. And we picked 3 Title I high schools. And by Title I, we're talking about a category of school which has more low income students in it. And so we are getting ready to provide training in the schools. We've already gone to McKay High School and offered some storytelling to them just to introduce ourselves to them. We're helping McKay High School form their Native American club, as a matter of fact. And it's just part of our starting to network and get acquainted with personnel, with faculty, with administrators, or whoever is at the school, including the people that work out in the schoolyards, the caretakers there. And so, we go out and get acquainted, and we're trying to get to the point where they will trust us enough to be doing co-teaching in the classroom this next year. And so we're doing after school classes and activities, and trying to show them that we can raise the morale and positive energy of the students enough that if they include us in the classroom, like I used to teach in the classroom at Chemawi Indian School, and the kids just loved the work we were doing, especially the storytelling. And so we're hoping that we can influence the students and that they will include their families in tree planting in these low income areas, mostly in Northeast Salem. So that's one of our partners. We work with Willamette River Keepers. I think that was a lot of Ludwigi again in the Willamette Slough. And then we've also worked at local farms as well. So those are some of the types of partners that we've had. We also work with the tribes, but instead of having partnership with the tribes, it's more relationships with the tribes. So it's kind of a different situation. But these are some of the partners we work with, and we really don't think that we would be successful without these partnerships, because this is when our interns can go out and do real conservation work out there with them and learn from some of the leaders in the community. It's been, I would say, it's something like 100% successful, because everyone has come away feeling good about how the interaction went and how the attitudes were, and we really believe in being positive at all times. I know some of our Native relatives believe that we have a lot of trauma to overcome and that we have issues to be brought up. And we don't do that much here at Elderberry Wisdom Farm. We work personally with people on their healing from trauma and historical trauma, but we don't bring up things with what we call our new neighbors. We don't use some terms that are derogatory. And so what that does is it opens up the communications and makes people feel safe working with us. And so I think that's been some of the success behind our partnerships. Many thanks. So is this a good time to open it up for questions?
First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. I love to see the connection of the storytelling, keeping that like positive community engagement going, and then also examples of having this work being backed by science as well. So it just seems like really well-rounded and important and fun work that y'all are doing in the area. So thank you so much for that overview of everything. My question is kind of about some of the weed management that you had referenced a little bit, specifically the Ludwigia, which is an aquatic weed. And it sounds like the interns have mostly been removing that by hand. So I guess I'm kind of curious if that's kind of a standard method for some of the restoration activities that you guys do in so much of your work. Is it mostly focused on teamwork, kind of making the dream work and doing that like kind of harder labor, which ultimately is a labor of love, but yeah, kind of coming together to hand pull things rather than using like chemicals, for example, or big machinery and things like that.
That is right. And so we might be like in the minority, like 5% or 4 or 3% of the world. We do not spray under any circumstances. So we believe that it goes back to the reciprocal relationship with the earth. We're not going to poison the earth in order to get rid of something, so we'll manually remove it. And we have no problem doing that. I cannot believe that our interns are so excited pulling a blackberry or a Ludwigia out, but they do. And so they enjoy it and they feel good. For some reason, there's a lot of, benefits to getting rid of them. And so we just believe we have a zero tolerance philosophy when it comes to sprays. Herbicides, pesticides, none of that. We won't use any of it. We just simply manually remove. And I think sometimes heavy equipment. I remember one time here at Elderberry Wisdom Farm, I had about 15 feet of blackberries, 15 feet high, and gigantic blackberries all over the place. And I had a friend with a tractor, and he came in with his fork, and we were able to, the moisture in the ground made it possible for us to pull the roots out with the blackberries. And so we got rid of our blackberries really easy without a single bit of spray. And we're trying to restore the soil, and we have little mushrooms growing all over the place and little worms, and little garter snakes and things. We've got a lot of little quail, and we would never want to poison any of them by trying to spray a poison out. So I actually must have been about a decade ago. They probably thought twice about it afterwards, but I was invited to go to Invasive 2.0 that the city of Portland Bureau of Environmental Services was holding on. So all these conservation people got together to find out what is the latest on invasive removal. And I brought my drum and I started my presentation with a drum because it was right after lunch and everybody was talking. And so I just started drumming and it got everybody's attention. And I just said, we don't use anything. I said, I'm asking you to stop using these sprays. It might take more time, but if you're trying to strengthen the biodiversity of the soil, you'll never accomplish it if you spray poison onto it. And we have to look at the soil as our relative, and that's kind of like where everything starts. And so that's sort of like I think they might still be friends with us. I'm not sure. But yeah, so it's not we don't think it's necessary. But I do know that when we went down to the Willamette River Keepers had sprayed 3 or 4 years in a row in the Willamette Slough. They got funding, probably OWEB grant. So for 3 years they had sprayed, and they got rid of a lot of it. But then it comes back because you've got these little things left in the ground, and then they just come back again. And so we were able to manually remove it. And they did come back this year. We couldn't make it down, but the 5th year in a row they did another cleaning. But I think that we're happy to work with whatever somebody's doing. And I see another question about cultural burning. That is a very important part of our work, is to restore the natural habitat before the wildfires creep in, because it's gonna sterilize the soil and kill all the native seeds with the intense heat of a wildfire. So the cultural burning is very important to us, and that's what we call it, is cultural burning. And so we think that that's very important, and that if people could, trust us to do it, if we worked on a short-term basis, I don't mean to say a short-term basis, but like over 3 years. So the first year you're learning about it, and the second year you're going out and doing a project on someone who's been doing it, and then the third year you're doing your own small project. I think that alleviates the fear, because I've had ODF be fearful that we were proposing that. And I don't think we need to be fearful. I think we just need to be a little wiser. And it used to be the elders, they would go out hunting in the fall up in the mountains, and as they left, they would set fire to the forest, and it would burn itself out when the snowfall and the rain came. And so it used to be a natural part of our work, always burning the area so that we would have more huckleberries and those kind of things. So I think it's something that over time that we're going to learn how to do. And there have been some native people that have been teaching it, and we've also got some soil and water. There's an organization, I'm a member of it, but I can't remember its name. I encourage everybody to look more closely at it and try to practice it, and we can be more successful here. Plant Wapato. Oh, you won't believe this. So we were given some Wapato, and we were able to give it to our to Brandon up at the North Santiam Watershed Council. But we had also been gifted some wapato out of the Oregon garden. And it turned out Brandon went over on the first day that we went out there to do the survey work. And then we were also going to pull some wapato out. We thought that we could transplant them up in the North Santiam. And Brandon said, this is not native. We would not have known, but as we look more closely at it, it was actually a wapato, not from our ecosystem. It was from somewhere else. So we were unable to gift it to them to plant. But if you can put wapato in the ground, it will start to grow, and it can hopefully suppress the Ludwigia. And so I think that in the fall of the year the water dissipates and it goes down a little bit, and it's easier to harvest it and stuff. We used to have a lot of wapato all over the Willamette Valley, but when the early farmers came in, they drained these fields so that they could plant their onions and potatoes and stuff, and we no longer had it. But I had a friend who restored her. She's got like 75 acres of ground there up here just north of Salem, in what used to be called Lake Labiche. And they stopped doing the farming and the wapato came back. So after like 100 or more years, those plants were still in the ground and dormant, and they started coming up. And so I think we can realize that there is a possibility for our plants to come back. It's been wonderful. Yes, anybody's welcome to get in touch.
Well, thank you all so much for being here today. And Rose, thank you again. It was much appreciated. And I definitely appreciated all the creative storytelling that you shared with us. Thank you.
I love it too. Thank you.
As well as just all the amazing work that you're doing for our local students through the hands-on learning.
Oh, I'm so excited to be in the schools. Yeah, finally. Yeah, thank you.